All right, we are all set.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Craig Karstens, and I am a judge on the Superior Court, which has statewide jurisdiction, but I'm here in Sussex County. I practiced law for 40 years before I became a judge, most of the time here in Sussex County, and I went to law school at Villanova Law School. Most of my practice of law was civil litigation, although I did a fair amount of criminal work that I got appointed to, including a couple of capital murder cases. So I'm happy to talk to you about being a judge. I've been on the bench now for, it'll be 2 years and a week or two. And it's hard to believe that it's been that time already.
Are we all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, sounds good. So we answered the first question with how long you've been a judge. So what made you want to become a judge?
I enjoyed the practice of law. As I said, I practiced for 40 years. I found it very interesting. I got tired of the financial aspect of the practice of law. I really, I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed trying to help people. I enjoyed the courtroom things, but the hours in the building I got tired of, and the position came open, and I thought I'd like to try something different, see what it was like, and I'm very happy that I have.
And what's your favorite thing about being a judge?
I really like to talk to the people in the courtroom, all of the people, the lawyers involved, the jurors when we're trying jury trials. I love talking to the jurors and trying to figure out what they're thinking and what makes them tick. And I especially like talking to the criminal defendants that appear in front of me, because I want to hear what they have to say. What's their story? What brought them here into this position? Because that, of course, helps me try to figure out what to do in the case. So it really is the people orientation that I think I find the most enjoyable about the position.
Okay. Do you have a least favorite thing about the bench?
There is a formality about being a judge. I get called Your Honor, and sometimes I'm not sure that I deserve that. The position deserves it, but I'm still not used to that, and it still strikes me as a little bit over the top, but I'm getting used to it.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge that you faced going from attorney to a judge?
When you're an attorney, you're an advocate. You're arguing a position, whatever that may be. When you're a judge, you want to be fair and you want to make the decision based on the law. And that switch was a big difference in the way I had to approach things. I actually found it relatively easy to do because I like being more neutral and trying to be fair and let everybody have their say, but that was a big difference. The other thing that really sticks out to me is how many decisions I have to make every day and every week. You know from the work you did in the court that we'll have calendars of maybe 15 violations of probation, and I have to go in and in fairly short order, I have to listen to what everybody has to say, try to figure out what the facts are and what really happened, and then make an important decision as to whether somebody goes back to level 5 incarceration or something else, or in a program or whatever. And the sheer volume of the decision making surprised me a little bit.
Okay. And are there any additional educational requirements to become a judge?
Yes and no, which sounds a little funny. The requirements to become a judge are you have to be a member of the Delaware Supreme Court Bar. And of course that requires you to go to law school and undergrad. So there are those requirements. Once you become a judge, they send you to judges school, which is a 2-week program at the National Judicial College. Before COVID came about, we would actually travel to Nevada, to Reno in Nevada, to where the college is located, and spend 2 weeks there. It's a very intense program. It was a very good program, and it covers all aspects of being a judge. So there is that as well as the normal requirements.
Okay. So our book talks a lot about how important it is to have fun hobbies outside of work to decompress. What are some hobbies that you enjoy doing?
I love to fish. I play some golf, and I spend a lot of time with my dogs.
Okay. You guys just got back from Outer Banks, right?
We did just get back from the Outer Banks. We were there, it's 2 weeks ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, the weather wasn't great for fishing, but we did get a little bit done.
Yeah. What advice would you have for a student who wants to pursue a law degree?
The process to become a lawyer is a grind. Law school is very time consuming, so you need to do your best to make sure that's what you really want to do before you get into that process. And that's not easy to do because you don't really have a complete understanding what it's like to be a lawyer until you actually do it. But I would suggest that anybody that's interested in going to law school, become a lawyer, talk to practicing lawyers, and most are very willing to do so. I used to talk to people all the time about the process. And after you finish law school, then you get to take the bar exam as your prize, and that's a really difficult time and a difficult exam. So think long and hard about it. There are a lot of good opportunities for people that want to be lawyers, and as I said, I've enjoyed my time and my practice very much. But you have to have the right ability and the right attitude towards things. If to me, probably the most important thing to be a successful lawyer and to enjoy the practice of law is to be able to deal with all sorts of people in all sorts of circumstances. When you're in civil practice, one of the things you do in civil litigation is you take depositions because you want to find out what people have to say about what happened that's relevant to the particular case. And I always enjoyed, but I always tried to figure out what a witness, what a person I was going to question might have to say about a case. I often called the politics of the case, what they thought. Did they have a bias? Were they in favor of my claim? Were they in favor of the other side? Did they have some other interest about it? And I really enjoyed doing that. And so I think that the real element here is the ability to talk to and deal with people at all levels, all ages, all education, all abilities, and those kind of things. I think that's really very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for anyone in the CJ.
I agree.
It all.
Well,
Yeah.
the work you did,
Yes.
you had to do the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. Have you ever had a case you did not agree with a sentence, but you knew you had to impose it?
There are certain circumstances where we have mandatory sentences in Delaware, and that ties a judge's hands to some extent. So I would have to answer your question, yes, but the further explanation is that you look at that case and you try to judge it as best you can and try to create a sentence that makes sense under the circumstances. So yes, but, and we were able to usually work through those things to make something that comes up that makes sense. One of the things, of course, that I know you saw is I get help from both the defense lawyer and the prosecutor in doing that. They analyze it at the first level. They try to figure out what makes sense for this particular case and this particular defendant. I will also say, in a lot of cases, and mostly in the serious cases, sometimes the murder cases, but other serious cases, I will get a pre-sentence investigation that our investigators here in the court do, and in my view, they do a really good job. And I get, the pre-sentence investigations I get are at least that thick, 3 or 4 inches thick, and they tell me everything they can find out about a case, and that's always really, really helpful to me. Because a lot of times you look on the surface and you think, well, this is probably where I ought to go, but then you start looking into the details a little bit more, and you realize, well, case not too long ago with two co-defendants. That was a murder case. And when I looked at the pre-sentence investigations, it changed my view of what I should do and how I should handle it. So, you've got to do your best to look at all of that.
Absolutely. And can you explain the process for becoming a judge in Delaware?
I can explain that process for you. When a position comes open, the governor's office advertises it, and a notice goes out to all members of the bar that this position is open. The requirements for a judge are really fairly sparse. You have to be a member of the bar of the Supreme Court of the state of Delaware. For certain of the positions, you have to be a resident of the county. For example, the resident judge in Sussex County has to live in Sussex County, although interestingly enough, the other judges don't have to, although as a practical matter they do. You apply, the governor's office has a commission that reviews all the applications, interviews all the people that have applied, and then makes a determination. Usually they will then send 3 names to the governor's office, and the governor interviews those people and then makes a choice as to who they will select as a judge. The other interesting to me thing about being a judge in Delaware is we have a provision in our state constitution that says there must be no more than one more of a major political party than the other major political party on the bench. And what that, as a practical matter, means is that if a Republican judge retires, they're almost always replaced by a Republican. Or if a Democratic judge retires, they're almost always replaced by a Democrat. Now, and that's a constitutional provision that's been in effect for over 100 years. There was a recent decision from the district court and the federal district court in the District of Delaware, which says that provision violates the United States Constitution. Interestingly enough, that case got appealed, and it is now pending before the United States Supreme Court. And yesterday, there was argument before the United States Supreme Court on whether that provision is constitutional or not. To date, our governor has continued to follow that, seems to have continued to follow that provision, pending what the United States Supreme Court does about it. That provision has, to me, an interesting effect on the smaller counties, on Sussex County, because a lot of people like that provision because it provided balance on the court. You had, just either one more Democrat or one more Republican than the other party. But what it would do is it would block certain people of certain parties from certain positions. Because, for example, in Sussex County, all 3 family court judges are Republicans. So if one of them retires, it's likely a Republican will be, under the old rules, will be appointed to replace them, and it excluded Democrats from that position. And now, if the United States Supreme Court decides that that's unconstitutional, then ultimately the governor would be free to appoint whoever they want. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting little curlicue that just occurred.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that's all we have. So if you have anything else, or...
Can I tell a story?
Absolutely.
I tell this because it inspired me, and when I've told it to other people, it inspired them. I was fortunate enough to be one of the lawyers that represented in the civil case those people that were harmed by Earl Bradley. If you've lived in Sussex County for very long, you know who Earl Bradley is. He was the pediatrician from the Lewis area that was accused and convicted of sexually abusing many of his patients. A horrible case, a very sad case. Many of the victims were very young. As I said, I was privileged to, in private practice, represent the victims, being one of the lead counsels in that case. And again, in my opinion, we were very successful, obtained a very substantial settlement, which we were able to put in trust for these children that had been harmed, to try to give them a start in life. And I'm very proud of that. And I thought I was very proud of it. I also represented a school teacher years ago that was in the Sussex Central District, and she asked me, like you are, to meet with her students who were part of the law club from Sussex Central. And I met with them for 5 or 6 years when I was in private practice in my office, and then when I came on the bench, I was able to meet with them, brought them in, when we were able to do it, brought them into the courtroom, and I always enjoyed that, like I enjoy this with you. And the last time I did this was last October. And we spent about a half an hour in the courtroom talking to each other, and they always want to talk about the capital cases, the death penalty cases that I was involved in, and they often want to talk about the Bradley case as well. And so we talked about that, and the last time we did it, we were downstairs in courtroom 4, and we got finished. And as I said, I enjoyed it, and there was one young lady that was part of the club that was in the audience that just seemed to be paying particular attention to what I had to say, and I didn't think too much about that. But after we finished, I was walking out the judge's entrance and exit in the back, and the students were starting to file out, and one of the teachers that was involved with the club started waving it. I didn't know what that was about, but I walked over to her, and she said, this young lady would like to shake your hand. I thought, well, okay.
Yeah.
That was still at a time when we would shake people's hands, and I'm not sure we can do that anymore. But I went to shake her hand, and she burst into tears, and she threw her arms around me. So now this was kind of beyond weird to me. I wasn't sure what this was all about. And she stepped back, and she said, thank you so much. You got me justice from my rapist.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out she was a victim of Earl Bradley. And this was a complete surprise to me.
Yeah.
You know, when we did the case, I mean, there were 1,400 victims, so I didn't get to know. In fact, most of my dealings with them were with their parents. But this young lady had been a victim of Earl Bradley. And I got to tell you, Aaron, I went back to my office, and I sat there for about 20 minutes, and I actually got tears in my mouth. I felt so grateful that I was in a position where I had helped somebody, and they had been able to express to me their gratitude for that help. I felt like what I really wanted to do was to be able to share that with everybody that had worked with me on those cases, and also the people that prosecuted Bradley that had worked so hard on those cases, because I happened to be in a circumstance where, you know, I was able to get that gratitude from her. But I gotta tell you, it was one of the highlights of my career, to be able to see that I had been able to be a part of something that was, you know, that had affected this young lady so much. So I've told that a couple of times. I told that recently to, we did a program for our new law clerks in Superior Court, and I told that, and I got a couple of calls from them saying, boy, that really makes me want to go forth and do some things. So if you've got students that want to be lawyers, you know, I will tell you, that was a unique circumstance for me. But if they go on to be a lawyer, and if they work hard and they practice hard, they'll get that kind of circumstance in some form or another. They'll have clients that they'll work hard for, and they'll say to them, boy, we were lost in this system that is a maze of laws that we don't understand, and you helped us get through it. So my situation was kind of an extreme circumstance, but I really would say that any person that wants to be a lawyer, they would have the opportunity to have that happen.
That's awesome. I think that's great to end on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.